All right, welcome back to All Cars, y'all. If you're new here, my name is John. It is time for another Motorweek retro review reaction. This week, it is a double feature surprise for you. It is the 1986 Pontiac 6000 STE and the Fiero GT. Now, I keep a list of reaction videos I want to do to these Motorweek videos, and the 6000, especially the STE, has been on that list for a long time, and I decided, hey, it was time to do it. I've been looking at a lot of newer cars, as a matter of fact, and I was totally surprised that Motorweek doesn't have one uploaded. So I did find one, but it's not from the Motorweek channel. I'll put who it's from. It's like Joshua Car News or something like that. I'll put it up there. Be sure to check out some of his content, but that's where I got it from, just in full transparency. So I really want to do the 6000, but hey, we get to do a Fiero along the way. This is a little bit of a long one, but because they're doing two, I think they're going to move through it pretty quickly, so we'll get to it here in a minute. But make yourself comfy. In that comfy chair, sit back, let's take a trip down memory lane, and as always, grab your beverage of choice, but this time, it's just water. I actually have Dr. Pepper, zero sugar. So I tell you what, as a triple benefit today, at the end of the video, I'll give you a review of the soda too. Let's see what 1986 held for us.
Now, to bring us all back down to earth, we've got a powerful pair of Pontiacs, the 6000 STE and the V6 Fiero GT. Now, we rated both cars tops in their class last year in our Motorweek Driver's Choice ratings, but that was a year ago, and lots of new competitors have rolled out of the showroom since then. Well, Pontiac didn't rest on their laurels. This year, the STE gets more of what makes a Euro-style sedan. And the Fiero, well, more of what makes a sports car. So is Pontiac's performance image still premium?
Well, to find out, let's look into the alterations made on our first Pontiac tour de force, the front drive 6000 STE. Now, the 6000 STE remains the most complete and advanced driver-oriented sedan Detroit has ever produced. For 1985, Pontiac made only changes that improved the 6000 STE's performance or appearance.
Okay, and that's why I wanted to do it. Saying that's the most complete performance-oriented that Detroit, not just GM, Detroit has ever produced. I find this such a fascinating car. On the one hand, it is generic mid-80s GM on the outside. I actually think the triple lights at the front make it look a little awkward. And I think this is, if I remember correctly, this is one of the models, part of the A bodies, right? Cutlass Sierra, Buick Century, that were widely ridiculed for looking exactly the same in shadows, essentially. GM didn't put a lot of effort into making these distinctive and stand out, but generic brand engineering, except they ended up being very, very good sellers. And for the most part, they are a solid but uninspired platform. They always look like they are standing on their tippy toes a little bit to me. None of them are beautiful. None of them really challenged the imports in terms of saying, look how advanced and leading the way in ergonomics or space efficiency or anything else, but they just ended up being a solid option for people, and they sold millions of them. Now, I think that the Chevy version, and even to a lesser extent the Oldsmobile version, a little generic. I liked the Buick version, and the Pontiac in its lower trim lines, I just don't like it. And in fact, this is one of the cars that made me realize that Pontiac spent a long time, other than having a logo, the front faces of their cars, I don't think they got a corporate identity for a long time. I mean, their cars all look like they're related like cousins, but not a strong familial resemblance between them. But then GM comes out with this, and if I remember correctly, wasn't there at least one review saying that this proves that Detroit, GM, Pontiac could build something that could be as good as a BMW. Now, I don't believe that in terms of exterior styling or interior quality materials, but they built a car that was truly, truly good for its time. And it wasn't an outlier, it was a mainstream sedan. So, styling-wise, generic 80s. But it's handsome. Not earth-shatteringly so. Not beautiful. But it's handsome. And that little bit of a sleeper, right? I kind of like it. I really do. I kind of like it.
Visually, the front end is slightly bolder with a wider bumper rub strip. Around back, wall-to-wall taillights have been added, but with the blacked out look thanks to neutral density lenses. Inside, things are pretty much as before, with manual 6-way seats standard and power recliners now an option. The standard seats offer good support but could stand more bottom cushion padding. And Pontiac should also do something about more steering wheel adjustment. For most drivers, it was a choice between a good driving position or a clear view of the gauges. Speaking of which, the Trick STE electronic cluster has been modified slightly for better legibility, but it's still not one of our favorite features on the STE. However, folks that are paying its $14,829 plus price tag seem to expect it. Along with
before they move on, let's talk about the interior. $14,000. That sounds kind of high, a little bit high, but I guess it is the top of the line. Interior, mid-80s GM, right? I knew before I even clicked on the video I wasn't going to love it. I don't like the linear layout there, and it's a holdover from the 70s, and they continued it all the way through the W bodies into the 90s. Just this horizontal strip right there. Then they add in digital gauges, and that is an idea that should have been stillborn at the beginning. It says high tech. It says the computer is here. We're putting it in our cars. Look how cutting edge we are, without investing in quality materials or even style. And that T-shaped gear shift handle in a square or rectangular plastic box down between. I don't like it. However, in fairness, it's the mid-80s. It's GM. You knew what you were going to get. And there's nothing there that really screamed horrific ergonomics. Like they really did anything wrong. They just didn't do anything that made you go, wow.
Other STE goodies like electronic ride control and its built-in air pump, or the thoughtful tool and emergency kit, just in case. But what we hope STE owners will really expect more of is finely tuned performance. And on that score, the STE's 2.8-liter V6 has been improved with multi-port fuel injection. It's 130 horses, the same as last year, peaks at a lower engine speed. But it does make more torque, about 10% more, now at 160. Yet due to a higher
No real complaints. I'm not a huge fan of the 2.8. Never have been. I don't have a strong feeling that I hate it. I just don't think of it as one of those like, oh man, yeah, that was a great engine, like the 3800. The numbers are fine. Nothing really to say about the numbers, and tuning it to make 10% more torque. That's what you feel in the seat of your pants. Let's see how it does here on the track.
Economy-minded final drive ratio, acceleration over the short course didn't improve by much. With crisp reaction from the 3-speed automatic, the STE returned a 0 to 60 time of 10.2 seconds, and 500-foot expressway on-ramp test of 9.2 seconds at 57 miles per hour, an overall improvement of 3%. But in the longer run, the newest STE's quarter-mile results suffered slightly, although 18.2 seconds at 75 is still good performance for a 3,000-pound V6 powered car. Handling is still confident and sure in the STE. There is no torque steer and little body roll. STE steering is quick and offers plenty of feedback. 70 Series Eagle GT tires help the rear end stay firmly planted while the front plows modestly. But while the STE is very responsive in rapid maneuvers, it is also very relaxed while cruising. Pontiac engineers have given the STE an enviable combination of smooth ride and spirited handling. And with four-wheel...
Before they go to the brakes, very interesting. So they tweak the engine, but an economy-minded final gear ratio. That's what they said there. Final drive. So you end up with acceleration that is not amazing. It's 1986, mid-80s, so you don't want to be too critical of that 10.2 seconds here, right? I guess I'm stumbling over what was Pontiac going for, because the handling is fine. A little bit of plow. It's front-engined, front-wheel drive, but neat and tidy through everything. What they didn't say is what really jumped out at me here, and it was how many times have we watched these, and through the slalom, the power steering pump can't keep up with quick changes. We've heard it over and over again in these reaction videos, right? In these old Motorweek videos. And they didn't say it here. So GM and Pontiac engineers put in the effort to make this actually handle and actually ride well at the same time. And you can handle and you can ride well, but it is hard. It's something that the Germans kind of excelled at the same time. But then to turn around and have that engine and them not making it peppy as they could have. All right, let's be fair here. What were they going for? Were they going for a spirited acceleration sporty car, or were we looking for the relaxed highway cruiser? I think the suspension engineers managed to find a balance. It sounds like Motorweek is a little disappointed that the powertrain had a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde as to what they were actually looking for, and maybe they didn't get either one of them great.
Wheel disc brakes stopping the 6000 STE is also a reassuring experience. While the pedal on our very new test car did have a mushy feel, the system was easy to modulate. In 6 tries, the STE always stopped straight. Distances averaged a short 115 feet from 55, and fade was practically non-existent.
And I'll always talk about the braking performance, and that was extremely good for the era. 115 feet, perfect, dead on, love it. The wheels lock up, I understand, but it doesn't get squirrely and it doesn't, slide sideways, right? They locked up, but you still had a straight stop. That's everything you could ask for in brakes at that time. The good job. Really, really good.
So in its 3rd year of production, the Pontiac 6000 STE is a more completely transformed sports sedan. And how about the future? Well, our spies tell us that this is an 86 STE, flush headlights and all. There will also be a more radical tail lamp treatment. Tires will probably get wider. The 3-speed automatic will give way to a 4-speed unit. And finally, buyers will be able to order a 5-speed manual. We and other Pontiac 6000 STE fans can hardly wait. But while we are waiting, let's see what Pontiac has done for its newest performer, the sassy mid-engine Fiero. With last year's Indy Pace Car Aero styling package, a new Fiero GT comes up to the line. With rocker panel extensions and the optional rear spoiler, this latest Fiero looks the part of a high-velocity, pavement-gripping sports car. But are the looks deceiving?
All right, so Fiero is such a mixed story for me. I've actually done a history of the Fiero and how it came about, and it was a project that was they had a shoestring budget. They really did. And they basically cobbled together parts from other cars and fit them in here. And it was a lot of compromise to get to that point. In fact, as sales were really tanking at the beginning of the 80s, they were actually ordered to stop work on it. And they just ignored it. they hid it and moved the money around to keep it going. And in fact, the whole project was started as a lie because they wanted a sporty car, but they were like, look, an efficient, cheap commuter car. Yeah. And what they ended up with was something that was really compromised and less focused, if you will, than the MR2 that came out. But the Fiero continually improved, and it was very innovative, having a space frame body with plastic panels where they actually built a machine to hold the body in place and drill every hole for the plastic panels at the same time. Super cool technology, and used later by GM on other projects like the minivans, I believe, that used some plastic panels, and certainly Saturn that used plastic panels on the sides. So it was like super innovative, but not adequately funded. So it had a lot of compromises, but they managed to keep improving it. And somehow they turned it into this sexy mini Ferrari and an engine compartment that could hold an Iron Duke. They managed to squeeze in a V6. I humbly believe this is a gorgeous, gorgeous looking car. I like the flying buttress back here at the back. I like the front end styling. I like the rear. I don't like the interior. I'll go ahead and tell you. Typical 80s GM, right? Gorgeous, gorgeous car. And in these fictitious worlds where we play games, right? Mind games of like, okay, I can take you back. It's 1986. Here's some money. You can buy a MR2 or a Fiero. I'll take the Fiero. Absolutely, hands down, no question about it. I would take the Fiero. Reliability questions aside, I'll take the Fiero.
Well, not if the 4-outlet twin exhaust pipes mean what they should. A V6 option is now available on all Fieros. It'll cost you $522 on most models, and it's standard equipment on the $14,542 Fiero GT. It's a multi-port fuel-injected 2.8-liter unit like the 6000 STEs, but thanks to the Fiero's lower exhaust system restriction, it generates 140 horsepower and 170 pounds of torque. The standard transmission for the V6 is the 4-speed manual we last saw in Chevy's Citation X11. But it was the added cost 3-speed automatic that came in our Fiero GT test car, and it arrived just in time for a trip to Pennsylvania's Pocono International Raceway. On Pocono's high bank 2.5-mile tri-oval, we clocked our Fiero GT at 110 with a top speed probably nearer 115. Now that's about a 10% gain over the 4-cylinder 4-speed Fiero SE that we tested last year. With far more low and mid-range torque, acceleration times also improved. A 0 to 60 sprint was 15% faster at 9.3 seconds. With a manual, it might be more like 8.3. And the quarter mile that we rated good in the original Fiero is now downright quick at 16.7 seconds and 80 miles per hour. But with 2,700 V6 equipped pounds to pull around, our Fiero GT seemed heavier and slower than our clocks indicated. That weight, however, and the 60 Series Eagle GT tires, along with a slight tweaking of the Fiero's performance suspension, have made this a better balanced sports car. On Pocono's infield road course, the Fiero GT exhibited more front tire scrub than expected, but precise throttle adjustments gave excellent control. Into a corner too fast? Just back off the gas and the rear will swing out for the turn. Then get back on the throttle and the rear wheels will continue to push the nose along the proper course. Negatives we noticed, well, major expansion joints produced a lot of front to rear hop, and the manual rack and pinion steering, while fine at speed, is very heavy for everyday around town use.
What an outstanding result. I'm with the GM 3-speed automatic, which I will say my opinion of GM transmissions are they were among the best in terms of shift quality. That's about it. I think GM made wonderful transmissions. But 9.3 seconds, and they think the manual might get 4-speed manual, 8.3, all the way down to 8.3. That's an outstanding result. 80 miles an hour through the quarter mile. That's great for the era. But this car, even with the improvements, it still shows that GM was starving the program. It didn't have a 5-speed. It didn't have a 4-speed. They probably didn't have a 4-speed at the time. It didn't have power steering. That would keep some buyers out of it, just because you think about somebody who maybe wants the 4-cylinder, right? But they do want an automatic because they're just driving back and forth to their office job. They like how it looks. They don't want to muscle it into parking spaces. It's a little thing, but it, to me, has always said GM just never invested in the car. Now, at the end of it, when they finally canceled it, they were a little prescient because sporty cars really took a dive. Sales did, and even the MR2 ended up being canceled. So it's hard to deny the business reasons behind it, but GM in many ways was so close to having something truly, truly special here. I really think so. And this result shows it that, mid-engine car, if your tires are scrubbing off a little too much, just let off on the gas. And the tail doesn't snap, right? Like a rear-engine car. It rotates. Pontiac engineers. Ooh, I never thought about this. Pontiac engineers in the 80s, they were doing a lot. They really were. And let's keep watching.
Brakes also faded more than we would have liked, although an overall stopping distance of 130 feet from 55 is a good result.
Hold on. Okay, I always stop it at the brakes. I'm sorry, guys. 130 feet, not great. And when they said this was 2,700 pounds, didn't they say the 6,000 was like 3,000 pounds? I mean, this is a surprisingly heavy car. Oh, I didn't talk about the engine. They got 10 more horsepower and 10 more foot-pounds out of it. Nice. But 130 feet is nothing to write home about. It's not terrible, but that no lockup. Did you notice that? That was just, that looked like an anti-lock braking car with how smoothly it stopped. Don't love the distance, but man, that was an impressive stop. If that was truly 55, it almost didn't look like it.
The short history of the Fiero has been bright, and the additions for 85 well received. Pontiac still has much more in store for future Fieros. Next year, 15-inch wheels will come with the top tire option, and a 5-speed manual will be optional with the V6. In 87, look for a new suspension that should be more bump resistant, and a novel form of power assist to reduce low-speed steering effort. As time drives on, so does car design, and Pontiac, with the Fiero and the 6000 STE, seems determined to arrive ahead.
Fantastic. I am glad I did this one. Let's work kind of backwards here. I've said most of what I want to say. The Fiero always has struck me as very desirable. I love its styling. I loved its first version. I love this later one. I loved where it could have gone. I love the potential of it. And the whole execution of it really leaves me really frustrated with GM. They had to make their business decisions, and like I said, they canceled the Fiero, and it was right about the time or right before these two-door sportier small cars sales all dropped off. And they've got to make money. I get that. They could use the factory for something else. But dang, it's always struck me as just such a sad kind of story. Because there's a passionate fan base of Fiero people. And you see them, they get together, right? But I think that in the scheme of things, the MR2 has a little bit more of, I don't want to say legendary status, but a little bit more of that status, right? And I think the Fiero was the one that if they had a little more resources, if the car was baked just a little more, they could have had something really, really special. I'm talking Lotus Elan kind of people looking back on it 20, 30 years later and being like, yeah, that was special. And it didn't. It didn't. And it ended up being just good and having its passionate fan base and being a car that someone of my era still desires and still would like to drive. Now that 6000, let's talk about it. I like the A-bodies. They are totally boring. Whether it's the Celebrity or the Cutlass Sierra or the Century or the 6000. The 6000, well, no, I'd say the Celebrity ranks bottom for me. I just thought it was an ugly vehicle overall. The 6000 ranks barely above it in its more generic pedestrian forms. That if it was me at that time and I had the less than $14,000 to buy a car, it would probably be the Oldsmobile or the Buick. Almost certainly the Buick, but I like Oldsmobile. Great seller on a platform that was fine, but nothing special compared to what the Japanese and other manufacturers were trying to do. And then Pontiac, in spite of the corporatization going on in GM at the time, in spite of GM manufacturing is going to build everything, and all these are corporate engines, and the engineers got, at the individual brands got less and less and less important. The fact that we can say Pontiac engineers took this and made it into something. They took what was a generic, not exactly world-leading platform and turned it into something that I want to say it was kind of special. It wasn't perfect. I don't think it was fantastic looking. I don't think the front styling especially was particularly distinctive. And I don't think they really invested in the style of the interior. But they ended up with something that did everything a good car should do, while also handling riding really, really well. The STE is kind of special, and it's a little blip to me that you've got Pontiac, and they were trying to become the excitement division, and the STE kind of, if you were to graph it, the STE kind of spiked. And then I don't really have that high of an opinion of later Pontiac efforts, and I think it was because those Pontiac engineers were watered down and their influence had less influence. The STE is kind of special. It really is. But for all of that, it doesn't rise up to my I would love one, right? If we were to take some money and get in our time machine and go back and it's 1986, I don't know. I think there's a lot of other cars I could come up with before the Pontiac. But still, what an awesome car and what an awesome job by Pontiac to come out with something that was really, really good on not just a good for GM stage. I appreciate you being here, but I promised you we've had our double feature or triple feature. Dr. Pepper, zero sugar. So this is absolutely not sponsored. I just happen to be drinking this. I like Dr. Pepper. I used to drink it all the time. As a matter of fact, when I used to drive back and forth to university, I would buy a 6-pack or a 12-pack and put it in a cooler behind my seat, and I just drank Dr. Peppers the whole time. The wonders of being young and having a metabolism. As I've gotten older, I don't like sugar that much. I very seldom drink sweet tea or drink a soda. Every once in a while, I'll treat myself to it. And I don't really drink soda at home. I drink water and coffee for the most part. And my wife was like, why don't we try this? Because Coke Zero isn't bad. And here's Dr. Pepper. So the goal would be Dr. Pepper flavor with zero sugar. What you end up with is something that tastes take a warm Pepsi and dump artificial sugar into it. You get none of the Dr. Pepper, and a little bit of cherry to make it that Dr. Pepper-ish thing. You end up with something that tastes not great and with an aftertaste. But I have 12 of these I have to drink. So we're pushing through, so I'm not drinking water. So I appreciate you being here, guys. Let me know what you think below. And if you have positive memories of the 6000 or the Fiero, let me know in the comments below. Appreciate you being here, guys.